Welcome to Real Time Recorder, everybody. I'm Zeus Caravalli, your host, and I'm here with my co-host, Dave Michaels. We took the 4th of July week off. Obviously, there was a light news week, and now we're back with week 27. Dave, how have you been? We're in the back half of the year now.
This is the official halfway through the year mark, and I'm on the road traveling. I'm in a conference room. I have no idea how my audio is working. I couldn't use my laptop on this. But this is the nomadic lifestyle. You and I practice it all the time, so let's see how this comes out.
Yeah, well, it's hybrid work made real. So obviously coming out of the 4th of week, it was a light news week, so we're not going to talk about news. I think another thing to think about, though, is some predictions for the back half of 2021. So we're each going to give a couple. I'll go first, Dave. My first prediction is that by the end of the year, Zoom will be in the contact center space. I don't think it'll be a full contact center offering, but I think it'll be kind of a light offering that the Zoom users can use to talk to customers. Obviously, guest access is a part of that. But I do think we'll see a roadmap to a full contact center offering. My reasoning on that is I think all the digital channels are the same. The TAM on that is on contact center is massive, right? It's in the tens of billions of dollars. The average revenue per seat is, you look at Five9, they get about a little over $200 per user per seat. Even at the low end, it's $50 per user per seat. So it dwarfs UC seats. And I just think it's too big a market for Zoom to ignore. They've done a great job with Zoom Phone. Zoom Apps is rolling along. And to me, this is their next big market that they want to add.
Yeah, it's an interesting prediction, Zeus. I think I've gotten a lot of questions on Zoom and contact center space. And I basically said, their DNA is to build, not buy. I figured if they were going to buy, they would probably pick up a smaller company like UJet or Edify or something like that, but they haven't done that. So they're probably building. And, Eric Yuan's got a challenge, right? He's now a public company. He's got to show regular growth, and that's a lot harder to do when you're as big as Zoom. So contact center makes a lot of sense. It's a bit of a race in my mind who's going to get there first, Zoom or Microsoft. Neither one of them have a contact center offering. Zoom has proven to be very agile and faster than the average bear. So I could definitely see Zoom coming out with a contact center at the end of the year. I think you're correct in that if they do that, it would probably be pretty basic. I don't think it would be a threat to leaders like Five9 or InContact, at least not on the high end yet. And there's a lot of low-end contact centers, and so I don't think it would really stand out. I don't think it would really be a threat, but the threat, of course, is the speed of Zoom and their agility, and who knows what it could be within a year. It could be a very significant product for them.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how Microsoft would do in the contact center space because they're the masters of the good enough product. And I just don't know if that would fly in the contact center. That to me would be hard to pitch, a business. And with Zoom, you're right, there is lots of room at the low end. I've talked to some school systems recently that have put contact center in as a way to notify parents and things like that. That's a perfect use case for something like a light contact center product that you could get from like a Zoom who's already well embedded in that industry.
So. One of my predictions actually is I think the industry is in a bit of in for a surprise with all this hybrid nonsense. Now, the comms industry has been very, very quick to define the hybrid office, largely based around video conferencing as something the industry is really good at. And so I completely agree with this, by the way. I think we're going to see video meetings being much more the norm moving forward, and I think the video-centric approach to meetings is going to continue for a long time. Where I'm flagging the issue is that I'm sensing that there's a lot up for grabs around this hybrid office. I think a lot of people are re-examining a lot of old assumptions. Everything from telecommuting to where they live to what an office is good for. We've been talking about for years that work is a thing you do, not a place you go. But I think everything is up for grabs, and I think we're going to see a lot of changes around the hybrid office concept. I don't think anyone knows what this looks like. I've been seeing article after article talking about employees not wanting to go back to work. They're going back to physical offices. People say they're going to quit before they have to go back to a physical office. I think we know that physical offices are going to get smaller. We don't know what that means. Does that mean accounting comes in on Monday and marketing comes in on Tuesday? New scheduling types of systems, room panel systems. I just think that everything is up for grabs. I mean, I'll even use the President's Club, which is of course the big travel thing at the end of the year for the top sales performers. Even that's up for grabs. It's like, what, travel? I don't know if I want to travel. So I think that this hybrid office concept is not nearly as well defined as the industry is pretending it is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of challenges today. Like how does hybrid work? I attended the customer contact week a couple of weeks ago, and they had it hybrid. So there's about 300 live attendees, and then there was a bunch of people attending online. But still, you got a much better experience in person. We still haven't really figured out how you do like a trade show floor hybrid. I do know over the back half of the year there are some events planned where the vendors say you can come or not come, but I don't think there's a lot of good best practices in that either. So even with Enterprise Connect, I'm curious to see how that works. I think you and I have talked about the applicability of something like using a clubhouse as a way of creating, recreating that cocktail hour type of session, right? So you're right. I think there's a tremendous amount of stuff that we don't know, but we'll learn as we go along. So
you have another prediction, too?
So Mike. What's that? Yeah, my next prediction is I do think, and I'll stay on the hybrid work theme, that I think hybrid work is going to really expose Microsoft Teams' flaws. You and I do a lot of work in the space, and it's when you talk to users about Teams, they don't really like it. But as I mentioned before, they're the king of good enough, and it kind of works when everybody's in the office. You can work around things. But their guest access is weak. Their calling's confusing. In fact, all the vendors that have direct routing offerings that's a result of the fact that their calling's not very good, right? And so I think when you do get into hybrid work and people need to have almost like a seamless work experience, I think the kludginess of Teams gets exposed. And I just think it's this is a pattern we've seen before with Microsoft. If you remember a decade or so ago, SharePoint was supposed to become the operating system of work, right? And that never really happened. And there was a big upswell of adoption initially, and then it fell off. And I think we're going to see Teams go along that route, and we'll see companies like Cisco and Zoom and even companies like Avaya, right, that have built out these better platforms start to pull away from them. And so I think there'll always be some coexistence, right? You do see SharePoint well deployed in companies, but there's a whole ecosystem of stuff that works around it. And I think you won't see many companies all in on Teams, but you're likely to see businesses deploy a little bit of Teams with a lot of other vendors to support it.
Well, it's a complicated prediction. You touched a lot of things there, but I definitely agree with you around the remote access or the guest access concept. I think that's a real challenge for Teams users. Slack has made some big headway. It used to be kind of Microsoft and Slack both had that limitation. And it's come pretty far with that now. I imagine Microsoft's eventually going to address this better than they have, but I think you're absolutely right that the interoperability requirement is going to become more important. Normally, when I travel, I use my Chromebook, and so I'm very cognizant of which apps work well in a browser and which ones don't. So, for example, both Zoom and Cisco have applications, so you might not think they work well in a browser, but they actually work pretty well in a browser. They've done a pretty good job of adapting their products to work in the browser. Right now, I'm not on my Chromebook. I'm actually in a conference room using, I don't even know what kind of PC, and I had no problem setting this up where I might have if we were using a different platform. And that, I think that's getting to be frustrating for a lot of people. The nomadic lifestyle, you don't know what kind of device you're going to have. In fact, I was going to use my mobile phone for this, but this particular app we're using doesn't work with a mobile phone. So that kind of, it's limiting. It really is frustrating for people, and I think we're going to see interoperability concerns become much more important around Teams and other products moving forward.
All right. So prediction 2 from Dave Michaels.
All right. So actually, this one is very, very topical and very current. But I've noticed, maybe you've noticed too, but it got hot. It got really hot lately. We've seen the Northwest very, very hot. We've seen a town in Canada burn down. We're getting another big heat wave, and so I've been noticing for a while that the weather is indeed a major story on a fairly regular basis somewhere in our country and in other countries. And so I'm going to predict that weather-related stuff, and this is going to sound a little short-sighted, I'm referring to HVAC equipment, is actually going to be one of the big draws to the office. I mean, in the past it's always been food and massages and all these things that bring people to the office, but I've noticed that people are going back to the office ahead of schedule to get to air conditioning. And I think that as we're looking at the extreme weather that we're predicting now this summer, and of course extreme weather in the winter, a lot of people just don't have the HVAC capability at home for a home office. And I think that's not really emerged yet as a significant topic regarding the future of work.
Yeah, that is interesting. Because generally offices are more comfortable. In fact, I did notice that people in Washington State, they were actually checking into hotels and things like that because they couldn't get back in their office yet to do some work and be comfortable. So, I do think the office gives you a nice, comfortable work environment, and I also think as people start doing that, though, they're gonna it becomes almost a rolling stone, right? That gathers momentum, where if you're in one day a week, they'll want to go in 2 days a week. You want to show up and talk to your new boss, that sort of thing. So,
I called a contact center the other day, and while the agent was helping me, I heard the dog barking. And a few years ago, that would have really got, what's going on here? But now it's like, oh, this agent's working at home, no big deal. And it's interesting how our requirements and expectations change. And you and I have been teleworking. We've been talking about teleworking for so long, and the issues have changed over the years. But I just never seen temperature come up until last week, and I talked to multiple people that literally went back to the office for the one and only reason of getting to air conditioning, which is like, where did that come from? But times change.
Yeah, well, I'm in San Mateo, and it's always 65 degrees here, so I'll knock on wood and be thankful for that. So
that's it for this week's predictions on Real Time Recorded, and next week Zeus and I will be back with some important thoughts on the week's news, if there is any.
Okay, well, happy travels, Dave.